Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Laura Favinger. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Insurance Information Institute, or the III, and we're so honored to work in partnership with AARP and to have you join us today for a conversation on the longevity economy. And I'm particularly honored that I'm joined by Jean Accius, who is the Senior Vice President for Global Thought Leadership at AARP. And he and I are going to talk today about the longevity economy and the importance of the contributions that are made by the 50 plus folks that are out there and doing more and more all the time, and the importance of focusing on the contributions that they're making to society and the economy and all kinds of things. So, Jean, maybe we could start first with you giving us a little bit of a background on your role, and then we'll get into it.
Well, first of all, Laura, thank you so much. It's so good to be with you and so good to be part of this conversation. I have the great pleasure of serving as AARP Senior Vice President of Global Thought Leadership. And our role and function is really to help to provide groundbreaking insights that can really help translate industries and sectors into action. And what I mean by that is the fact that, as you indicated, the longevity economy is something that is core to AARP's DNA. When AARP was founded by our founder, she was a retired principal who went looking for her retired friend and found her retired friend who was a retired teacher living in a chicken coop, a shack without walls. This was back in the 60s, back in the late 50s, early 60s, as you could imagine. And as a result, in 1958, she created AARP. So this idea and this focus on economic security and financial security is critically important, and really thinking about how we leverage the growing aging of the population is so vital for every sector and for every industry. So I'm extremely honored to be part of this conversation.
Well, that's great, and such great history there, and for all of us to understand how AARP has evolved over the years, and all of the support that they've given through the years to people in the 50 plus category. I thought today we would talk around three different themes, perhaps. The fact that folks are living and working longer, that they're adapting to new technologies all the time. We've certainly seen that in the last couple of years through the pandemic. And then about gaining new skills and how 50 plus individuals are also working to mentor younger colleagues. One thing I thought was interesting about doing this today is the III and the AARP have missions that sort of overlap. At the III, we're a trusted source of data-driven insights. We look to inform and empower consumers about insurance and educating them about the need for insurance. And certainly folks in the 50 plus category have the need to be able to go out and procure auto and home and life insurance and such, and that contributes to their ability to function well as they age. And when you think about that and bringing it back to living and working longer, we certainly have seen that. And I know your research has borne that out as well. And Jean, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, Laura, I could not agree with you more in terms of the shared focus and the shared opportunity to really think about the aging of the population. We know, particularly in the US, that there are 10,000 people who are turning 65 each and every day. And in fact, that by 2032, the number of people over the age of 65 will outnumber those of children. So for the first time in US history. So we know that there's a lot of demographic changes that are actually occurring. And as you indicated, that there's a tremendous opportunity, particularly to think about, what is the value and the contribution of this aging population. We know that in 2018, that people over the age of 50 contributed roughly about 8.3 trillion in economic activity to the country. Another way to kind of think about that is that if people over the age of 50 were its own country, it would be the third largest country in the world. And when you think about financial services and when you think about insurance, 65 cents of every dollar spent in 2018 was spent by someone over the age of 50. And we also know, as you indicated, that given the demographic changes and the opportunity to empower consumers, that what our research has demonstrated is the longevity of the fact that people are living longer. A person born today has a more than a 50% chance of living beyond 105. So what will you do with those added years? How do you ensure,
Exactly.
and this is something AARP is extremely passionate about, how do we ensure that consumers have the tools, the resources, and the means to match their life's aspirations? And that is what the longevity economy is actually demonstrating, is the fact that it was 8.3 trillion in 2018. It will be nearly 13 trillion in 2030. 2030 is just a couple of years away. So how are consumers, how are employers, how are businesses leveraging this aging population in a way that meets their needs, and also clearly from a business perspective, their financial bottom line?
And that's such an important point. And in preparing for this discussion, realizing the impact on the GDP. And we say that about insurance too, that it is it's such an important factor in terms of impacting the economy.
Mhm.
And so when you think about that, and keeping folks employed longer, and employers sort of getting that, there is some concern on the horizon, or there certainly has been, also about age discrimination,
Mhm.
and that's impacting how long people are working and what opportunities they're being given. And again, if we can keep people working longer in good jobs, there's all kinds of benefits that come from that, not the least of which is the impact to the economy.
No, you're absolutely right. There's absolutely social benefits, there's health benefits, and clearly there's economic benefits, particularly when we are creating a more inclusive society that leverages the talents, the expertise, the experience of different populations. And older adults is critically important to that. To your point, when I mentioned the longevity economy and the 8.3 trillion that they contributed in 2018, when we looked at the cost of age discrimination, what we learned from that, Laura, was the fact that age discrimination actually stifles economic growth, which impacts all of us. So, what I'm sharing with you is the fact that yes, age discrimination is real, and age discrimination impacts all of us. And here's why. The cost of age discrimination in 2018 was $850 billion. So, had we been in a society where we were not excluding people, where society was not discriminating against people because of their age, that 8.3 trillion would have been $850 billion higher. Right. So
Exactly.
I think it's important for us, when we talk about the issues of inequities, when we talk about the issues of discrimination, to really think about, how these isms actually impact all of us, not just those who are being impacted by the discrimination. So, in other words, the fact that there is age discrimination, particularly for workers over the age of 50, impacts generations, all generations.
Exactly. And I think that's an important point. And of course, there has been a lot of focus recently on diversity and
Mhm.
inclusion, and it's hugely important. And I know our industry, from the insurance perspective, realizes that focus is very important, and that includes age as well. And for just the very reasons that you have mentioned there. And we'll talk a little more about that, I think, when we
Right.
talk about mentoring and so forth, because that's another feature of the importance of keeping folks employed, and what they can do in terms of ushering in new generations, and all of that as well into the workforce. But wanted to shift over, if we could, to talking a little bit about new technologies. And I know this is this is something that has become so apparent recently, in terms of those Americans over 50 who are becoming much more savvy from a tech perspective, and almost having to be. And, I think about during the pandemic and how I communicated with my parents and friends, and, teaching them about Zoom and
Mhm.
FaceTime, and all of that. But it's sort of technology literacy is really becoming an important feature of how we age as well, because it can also help support us as we age. More things available to us online and otherwise. But maybe talk for a little bit about what you found there, Jean, as
Right.
well.
Well, Laura, I think this kind of speaks to why you may see a smile on my face because you mentioned during the pandemic and what we've been able to see. I think one of the things that the pandemic has demonstrated quite well is disrupting the myth that older adults are fearful of technology or don't know how to use technology. Over the course of the last 2 years, we've seen older adults on TikTok. We've seen older adults on social media platforms. They have connected with their families across the country as a means of staying connected while we've been physically disconnected, if you will, because of the pandemic and some of the guidelines. But we also know from the work that we've done at AARP that the usage of technology in all of its form has actually increased significantly among older adults. They are online. They are utilizing different forms of technology in order to not just upskill and reskill, but also to stay connected. According to our longevity economy work, what we found was the fact that one of the areas where older adults are spending a significant amount of resources is around technology. In fact, in 2018, it was about $140 billion. And then guess what? By 2050, that'll be up to $640 billion. So older adults are spending resources on technology. They are doing it for a variety of reasons, clearly to stay connected. I think that the pandemic has drastically demonstrated that older adults are nimble, that they are not fearful of technology, that they are able to utilize it in a very meaningful and intentional way. And I think that because of the digital era that we're in, it's becoming more and more apparent. The need for technology. And through some of our affiliations, whether it's with OATS, we've seen a significant increase in older adults signing up for training courses, particularly around technology, in order for them to either apply for jobs or for them to stay connected online. So this is an amazing time, particularly for thinking about the needs of older adults, but also to really kind of disrupt some of the our uh, pre-COVID conceptions of what older adults can or should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that also sort of makes me think about, one of our priorities is as we look at cyber insurance and privacy and all of that. So we have so many more people online and using mobile devices, using wearables, using other things, and making sure people are also educated, and this presents an opportunity here too, about that, about protecting their online profile and other things that could cause some issues there, and because we're all so much more using this and being aware of what some of those considerations are, and not everyone is. This is true for consumers and individuals, of course, and then businesses as well. So,
and I'm so happy you said that, particularly around the privacy concerns. When we released our 2022 technology survey, that was one of the key concerns, was around identity theft, around fraud, around hacks, and how could they better protect, how could older adults better protect themselves? So I do think that there's an opportunity, particularly in the technology space, to think about how do we provide the support and the education and the awareness so we can all protect ourselves. I know that I was having a conversation with my family the other day, and they said, and my wife said to me, Gene, you need to look at your Apple phone because apparently Apple has a section where it says, here's all the different areas where there might be data breaches. And I was really stunned to see the number of apps where I would have tapped my information in, and now I have to go back and kind of think about exactly how do I better protect my identity, particularly online.
right.
Because of, to your point, Laura, so many people are online now or using different forms of technology where they're giving their data, where there's more access to data information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Such an important point. Well, when we think about gaining new skills, whether that is technology related or otherwise, this focus on a multi-generational workforce, and as we talked before about individuals in the 50 plus category working longer in their roles, but we're seeing, as I mentioned, in the insurance industry, for example, that folks are aging out to some degree, and we're not as quick to bring along the new generation of workers. And we're trying to educate about the great career paths that are available in the insurance industry. These are typically very good jobs. They have longevity, and there are so many varieties of roles. But similar to how I came into the industry, I surely did not think, gee, I want to be in insurance. It just sort of happened. But we're trying to create a little more intention around that, and we've been working very much with various programs to create more career paths and educate about that with undergraduates. We also just launched a program with HBCU Impact to be able to educate again about careers and the possibility of working in the insurance industry. And that includes, older folks as well, being able to continue working and have vital roles in the industry. And then also as mentors and, to work with and help support and be a good mentor to younger people who are coming into the industry. And that's a piece that maybe we don't focus as much on. And actually, you all have some data, I believe, and have done some looking at how younger folks actually say they like working with people at different ages, and that older folks can also help them, in terms of teaching them the ropes and everything that goes with that. But Jean, what would be your reaction to that?
Well, Laura, I think that as people live longer, they're going to either want to or need to continue working. So the idea of a multi-generational workforce is actually a reality. We have a major program called Living, Learning, and Earning Longer, and would love to connect with you after this about that initiative. But the opportunity here is to look at what are the opportunities to leverage an age-diverse workforce that really is common practice in many, many organizations today. Because each generation brings a unique set of skills. And when you are able to leverage the skills in a way that advances the organizational goals and taps into that diversity of age and experience and wisdom and insights, you are more likely to be more productive as an organization. We've seen higher levels of creativity, greater innovation, and greater return on investment in terms of ROI. So we know, basically from the research that we've done, that when you're able to tap into the age diversity of your workforce, when you're able to create a culture that really looks into the opportunities of tapping and leveraging the insights and the willingness of different employees in a way that advances the objectives of the organization, is beneficial for the workers, is beneficial for the company, and frankly is beneficial for the economy. So when you mentioned some of the work that we've done looking at mentorship and upskilling and reskilling. And we've seen this, particularly in our own surveys, particularly across generations, that generations like to get together and they like to really, they work together. And there's mentoring and there's reverse mentoring. And that actually happens organically, in some cases in a formal setting. And because of the opportunity to do mentorship or reverse mentoring, whether or not we realize it, when you're in a mentoring relationship, it really goes both ways. So there's the mentoring and the reverse mentoring. So we're all learning in this process. And we know that over 70% of those surveyed indicated that they are better off as a result of those mentor, reverse mentoring relationships as a result of that age diversity that's in the mix. So there's something there to really kind of tap into. The other thing I would just mention very quickly is the fact that I think we're in this environment where we're having to reimagine what work looks like. And whether it's called the Great Resignation or the Great Reconnection or the Great Retirement or the Great Reset or the Great something else that's going to probably come up. But the point is the fact that we're seeing this huge shift and how work is being defined and what employees actually value. And I'll tell you this, Laura, one of the things that I've seen from survey to survey is this idea of flexibility. That has no age. That has absolutely no age. And then the opportunity to be able to contribute and give back. That too has no age. So I do think that as industries, we need to reimagine what the employee value proposition is, and how do you actually articulate that in a way that taps into where people are today.
Yes, absolutely. And you think about the challenges we've all faced over the last couple of years. And trying to put a little bit of an optimistic spin to it. And what are the good things that we can take out of it? Certainly, there have been a lot of difficulties and hardships, and that's certainly not, and has impacted this community, as well. But in terms of that and that flexibility and different ways of imagining work, and maybe just a little more on that point, Jean, just how the last couple of years. We're not really clear of all of this yet, and we may not be for a little bit, but just how it has impacted and what you have really seen it, impacting around the world. Your role is global, so not just on the U.S., but in terms of what you've seen, for the over 50 community, as those challenges have arisen, and as we're working through the COVID considerations.
Right. Well, I really appreciate that question, Laura, because I think you're absolutely right that these last 2+ years has challenged us in ways that we might not ever imagine. And I think that one of the things that's actually come out of this pandemic or is coming out of this pandemic is what I refer to as greater clarity. Clarity in a sense in terms of the challenges that we have to face collectively, the roles that industries and sectors have to play in helping to solve those, and then clearly thinking about what's the opportunity to reimagine current models in a way that is more refined for the potential next crisis we might actually face. So for the 50+ population, whether it's here in the US or whether it's around the world, we're seeing significant increases in the aging of the population globally. And we're also seeing declines in fertility rates, which means the fact that whether this is going to have amazing opportunities for all of us to think about how do we utilize our skills? How do we utilize our time in a way that provides value and meaning both for ourselves, but also for organizations that we work with and the industries that we work in? And I think that as industry leaders, we need to start to think about how do we tap into that sense of purpose and that sense of meaning that is so critically important. And I think that the insurance industry has a major role to play because we're always thinking about our life expectancy, our longevity. We're really trying to make sure that the means match our life aspirations. So how do we actually do that? If you know you have an additional 30 years of life, how are you going to utilize and maximize that time? And then the other thing I would also say is the fact that I think that this pandemic has really demonstrated, and which is why I really appreciate our conversation today, the need to address the issues of equity. So when I talk about the issues of the longevity economy and the contributions of older adults, and then when I start to share, like we did around the cost of age discrimination, how that stifles economic growth, I think there's a new report that we released today that is going to be vitally important, particularly for the insurance industry, is looking at the differences in life expectancy. There's huge differences in life expectancy. And what we found was the fact that if we don't address the differences in life expectancy, that is going to cost the United States economy $1.6 trillion. And we're going to see an actual loss of 1.1 trillion in consumer spending just alone, which has huge implications, particularly for the financial industry, the insurance industry in particular. So thinking about the opportunities for us to really ensure that we're bringing everyone to the table, that everyone has an opportunity to live to their fullest potential, that they can actually contribute in a very meaningful way. Again, goes back to my point earlier. It impacts in all of us. So we have an amazing opportunity as we start to think about what a post-COVID society might look like, to ensure that we, working closely with private sectors, working closely with public sector, really imagine an environment and a society that's way more inclusive than what it has been before.
Absolutely, and as we've said, this makes communities thrive. It helps people support themselves and their families, and it's going to take some very serious, dedicated thought leadership around these issues. And we're so pleased to partner with AARP, who is carving out a role in helping to do that and supporting that community as well. And we are so pleased that we've had this opportunity to talk with you today.
Same here.
Jean, thank you for joining us. And we hope this is not the last of these conversations, and that our partnership will continue in the future. So thanks again for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Laura.
And thank everyone. We thank you very much for tuning in today.